Today, we are speaking with Dr. Luigi Di Rosa, longevity medicine expert and health director of Centro Salus in Palermo. For over 20 years, Dr. Di Rosa has been at the forefront of working with longevity biomarkers like inflammation, prevention, and also anti-aging protocols. His approach combines scientific rigor with deep listening and personalized care. Dr. Di Rosa doesn't just look at test results, he looks at the whole person, their life, their stress, their habits, and he designs interventions that actually work in real life. Dr. Di Rosa will be leading the medical side of our Sicilian longevity immersion, where participants receive a complete longevity checkup, personalized consultation, and also a roadmap for sustainable health transformation. Dr. Di Rosa is also plastic and reconstructive surgeon. Welcome, a very warm welcome to you, Luigi Di Rosa. Let's start with the foundation, with the fundamentals. I'd love to know, what is longevity for you?
Good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with you today. So what is longevity actually? Well, there's not a real definition. Longevity just means I want to live better and I want to live longer. Usually we think at the last part of our life when we get old and when we age as the poorest part. Actually, that's not true. We can build up since the very beginning a lot of strategies, which include medications, which include sleep exercise, which include meditation, which includes, for example, the gym, so the physical part, in order to achieve at least 20 or 30 years more completely in perfect health. And that's what longevity means.
Said simple, nothing too complicated or nothing too crazy, no. I would say. And if you think about it, what do you think or would you believe would start thinking about longevity at which age?
Right. Well, there's not really an age when you can start about, thinking about your future. But reality is that we know that usually our patients starts to be aware of the longevity programs when they are between 30 and 40 years old. From that moment on, even every day more, there is a lot of interest in this subject, in this medical subject, because it's something, very similar to what happened in the 70s when everybody wanted to be fit. So the physical education programs, fitness and wellness just started to grow up, especially in America and then in the rest of the Europe and in the rest of the world. Longevity is absolutely the same. We had something like 30 or 40 years of academic research and where longevity was studied a lot, but it was just in the academic environment. After that, nowadays, we can translate all these studies into something really practical. So we are ready now to give everybody the results of these studies. And we can just say to them, okay, if you do that, if you do this, if you follow me, I'm sure I can give you lots of benefits, real benefits that we can measure. That's something very, very important, which was impossible in the past.
I love what you say about practical things, because sometimes it sounds like something too, complicated, and all the measurements doesn't make them accessible to everyone. And usually at the beginning, it's also like an elite thing for a few people. But now you're talking about making it democratize, something like
absolutely, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there are lots of people that probably saw on social media or even Netflix, some people that just spend lots of money every year for, staying healthy and don't age. That's not true. We can do exactly the same things, but amazing, with a little spend, a little money, that's really important to say, because it's not something just for the very rich people. It's something achievable for everybody.
Wonderful. That not rocket science in that sense.
Absolutely. No, that's not.
I have another curiosity, another question for you. If you think about the three most common early signs that your
Right?
body or my body, our body tells us we are aging fast, what are
Yeah,
those?
of course. First of all, fatigue, for example. If you always feel tired, and that's not normal because it's absolutely independent from what you've done during your day life, that's one main point that you should be aware of, and you should be careful about that. So there's something that absolutely insane in your body, that there's something you should change. Sleep quality, that's another thing, because we know that the sleep system and the sleep quality is really connected to your longevity. Your skin quality, which seems strange, but that is not just an aesthetic point of view, it's not an aesthetic fact. Our skin can tell us lots of things about our real health, okay? So yeah, that's it. There's
Because it's a
another thing.
mirror. Yeah,
There's
tell
another
us.
thing, which is your gut and your poop. Now we'll speak about that after that.
Yeah, that's super interesting because the skin always is associated with aesthetic, but actually it's the
Yeah, that's
biggest
not
point we have, right? Like the skin mirrors what's going on inside,
inside.
And it's almost a sign. So I really like
Yeah.
that you mentioned, and really curious about what you're going to tell us about the gut because it's also very important one. What is the difference between living longer and
Yeah.
living better? You mentioned better at the beginning, so now I'm curious about making the difference.
Yes, the point is, we know that people that reach fantastic goal like living until 110, 115 years old, and a person that just died at 75 or 78 years, well, they both develop the same disease, like I would say hypertension or diabetes, and all the normal diseases connected with old, aging, let's say. The problem is that people that can live up to 115 years old develop this kind of diseases just in the very last few years of their life. Okay, instead, people that usually they just die at 78 or 75 or so on, they started to have this problem in the late 50s. Okay, so they have 20 or 25 years of, let's say, average health, but with diseases, okay? Common diseases and chronic diseases. That's the point. Longevity is the science that makes you feel better because gives you the opportunity to have 20, 30, 40 years more without any chronic illness, which are usually connected with aging. Okay, so diabetes, hypertension, and all these problems are just postponed in the very last part of your life.
So we're really talking about life quality, and then
Yes.
that's not adding
So,
time
exactly.
or life.
Yeah. So you've got 30 years or 20 years at least without any real serious health problems. So the quality of life is absolutely another one. You can do sports, you can you don't have any respiratory problems, cardiologic problems, and so on. So your life, you can live and you can spend your life as you want, as you prefer, without any problem.
I'm really interesting to know about someone who is already in a 50 years old phase of his
Right.
life. I work actually with a lot of people there, whether entrepreneurs and executives, and they come to me, of course, for other reasons than the longevity, the strict one, but many times it's connected. So when someone like the people I'm working with come to you and say, hey, I want to do something about my longevity, I want to improve my quality of life, where do you start from?
Okay.
With it?
Well, first of all, if a patient comes to me and is 50 years old, first of all, it's not too late. Okay, so don't worry. You don't have to be 30 in order to have to optimize your health span. 50 years or 60 years is absolutely fine. Whenever you start, is always better. So that's good. Um, Medical assessment for longevity is quite different from the one that you can have if you go to a cardiologist or a pneumologist and so on, because we usually receive people that are no patients, are people that are good, have got average or good health. So what we do is analysis. We try to understand exactly what kind of hidden problems they can have in some, let's say, pillars of longevity, which is sleep, which is the gut function, which is the cardiology function, which is the skin, which is all of the things that we can have, the genetics. And after this assessment, we can give him in return lots of suggestions and specific medications for exactly that person. It's all personalized medicine, and it's different between woman and man. So it's also what we call gender medicine specific. And it's different if you've got 40 years and if you've got 50 years. It's different if you have people in your family that had cancer or they had diabetes or they had heart attacks in the past. So according to all this information, we can build up a path for from that moment on in order to reverse really the aging of that person.
Hyper personalized, I would say. Like the way you're
Yes.
describing reminds me of this concept. It's
Yeah.
not nothing that you take it as it is. Okay, now you go for a longevity plan. It looks like this, and this, but you
Yeah.
really go with looking at things in depth, and that's where the real magic then happens because it's targeted to each of us.
Yeah.
And what about the blood tests that are really non-negotiable when you talk
Right.
about longevity? You mentioned a few of them. Like if you would just mention, like summing up the most important ones, which are those?
Okay. Well, what we do actually is trying to calculate the biological age, which is different from the chronological age. And biological age is exactly the age of your body, independently on when you were born. Okay. So for doing that, we use some blood tests, and some of them are absolutely the base for any longevity doctor. Okay. So we have to know exactly your monocytes, your lymphocytes, so your, let's say, white blood cells and red blood cells, and some biomarkers of inflammation, in order to calculate exactly what kind of biological have you had. Okay, how we do that? There are some studies that standardized all these measurements. So if I have all these lab values, there are some algorithms that exactly measure your biological age. That's why we need your blood at least a little bit in order to understand what your biological age is.
So it's really a simple blood test, and then what
Yeah,
is measured is the special part.
absolutely, absolutely. We usually do the blood test and after the first assessment because it's not just the basic ones. I also can add some specific biomarkers in order to understand what is good for you, depending on the questionnaire that we gave you. So really, it's very personalized. But there are a few of them that are the basis we need to do that.
Do I understand correct that the beginning is more a qualitative kind of questionnaire, and then there is the quantitative part? So it's based.
Yes, exactly. There's a very first part which is qualitative with some questionnaires, but in the meanwhile, we use some instruments in order to understand, for example, your muscle strength, which is connected with longevity. We use a dynamometer, which measure how strong you are. And then we can compare that measure with some tables, and we know exactly, depending on your age and your sex, if you have a good quantity of muscle, or you're under or you're up from that value. And this is very important because we saw that usually when you grow old, like when you age, there's an incredible loss of muscle, and we need muscle not only for beauty, but is really important for our body. So we both do questionnaires and some tests, let's say tests, in order to understand what the patient that I've got in front of me.
Super interesting. And how often do people need to repeat those tests? Is it like once at a time, or do you suggest them to do more than one?
No, this is very important because the patient have to understand that usually longevity science is a change of lifestyle. I mean, if I give you, let's say, vitamin D, okay, or folic acid, for example, you will not see any immediate result. And if the patient is not committed with me in this path, okay, it would probably say, I don't having any, benefit at the moment. So that's why it's important to go and do the follow-up of the 3 months, because I can measure you again and I can let you understand that your aging is lower, okay? And the change in lifestyle is something that you have to do forever. It's like the gym. If you see a person that had hit the gym 3 times a day for 30 years and it's in his 70s, for example, you can see really clearly the difference from a person that always stayed on a chair. So that's the point. It's a completely different lifestyle.
That's the key, actually. What most people think, I go and do something cool, maybe even expensive, but then if you don't follow up and you keep creating those changes that you keep until the end of your days, then probably you're not spending your money in the right way. And what about deciding the interventions? Like when you have someone, you're treating someone that comes to you and say, I want to improve my quality of life, longevity, which interventions are what doing? Like what exactly you suggest, and which are just a hype? Like, there's a lot of trends, things that are super popular, pop up in social media because an influencer shares some whatever, but then not really good ones. Like, how do you decide it?
Okay. I'll tell you this, which is absolutely great. It's fantastic. You probably know that in the last year, let's say, the IV injections, the IV therapy is something that had a big hype. IV therapy is when people goes into even longevity centers and they had shots of vitamin or antioxidants just in the vein, and they claim that it's fantastic, it's very important, and people feel better, which is absolutely true. Then there are some studies that show that if you put vitamin or antioxidant, or if you just put the physiologic solution, the results is absolutely the same. Why? Because we usually are pure hydration. We're not hydrated. So when you just have fluids, you feel better, okay? So we do science, which means we have to be aware that there are lots of hypes on social media. Not all of them is, scientifically proven. So I must say that we can do lots of things. Real treatment can be medications, can be vitamins, can be antioxidants, even injected, but it depends on what you really need, okay? So there's not a magic formula that can go, it's not good for everyone, okay? But we can show you that we have a real impact on your life. Actually, we give you advices, even simple one, like for example, wearing a certain kind of glasses with a filter during the last part of your day in order to reset your internal clock and say, okay, no more cortisol. Now it's moment to give you melatonin and just go to bed. So something really, we would say stupid or practical, but they can give you a great help in your life.
Thank you for helping navigating the hype or the truth. There is definitely a need for more of real stuff, because I have the feeling sometimes just for the sake of business and making money, people come up with some idea of, biohacking things or whatever. Then at the end, there's no scientific background and no one is proved to be real. But if you really strongly believe it's going to work, probably it's even going to work.
Yeah,
Action. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called the placebo effect. So there's nothing, inside, but it works.
So, Dr. Di Rosa, I would love you to talk a little bit about the week that we're going to have in Sicily, in Palermo. And I would love to know, or for you to explain a little bit how you are going to work, what you're going to do with our group during the Sicily Longevity Immersion.
Great. Okay. So it will be a fantastic journey. I'm sure of that. And there will be lots of different parts during these 7 days. At the very beginning, there will be a medical checkup when we will analyze all the main inflammation biomarkers, and we will do a metabolic and glycation screening assessment in order to have the baseline of all these guests. After that, usually we will both have medical parts that will be fun and interesting anyway, and some absolutely fun part like the Eat to Recharge dinner or the Mediterranean cooking lab or forest bathing, energy picnic or recovery session. So the main purpose is from one hand, we have to give you all the medical and scientific part for the longevity program, so that at the end of the 7 days, each guest, each patient will have a precise view of what they have at the baseline and how they improved during these 7 days and what they can do for the rest of their life. Meanwhile, they will have lots of fun with lots of journeys inside Sicily. We will have sea training sessions. We will have boat experience. We will have recovery protocols for during that days and in the future. We will have functional strength and movement strength exercises. So we'll be fun, practical, and enjoyable.
I love the mix because it's exactly what you're saying about longevity. It's not only about the medicals, the medical part and the test and the blood test, the biological age, but it's really also learning how to implement those things so that you can bring them back home, whatever you're doing the experience, right? Yeah. So thank you for making a summary about it. You also mentioned some parts which were relative to the Mediterranean lifestyle. Of course, we are in Sicily, and that's one of the most beautiful things we can offer our guests. But if you think about a medical perspective, why is the Mediterranean way of eating so powerful for longevity?
Right. Well, Mediterranean diet is nowadays absolutely the best solution for your diet. It's not something said from Dr. Di Rosa. This is what the academic environment said in the last, let's say, 30, 40 years. So everybody knows that what we eat in the Mediterranean zone is probably the best way of how you can eat, because it's full of antioxidants, it's full of good proteins. So if you enter into these, let's say, recipe words, and you can put that into your place when you go back home, I'm sure you will have the best, really the best nutritional plans that you can have for the rest of your life.
Wonderful. And you also mentioned we're going to have some movement integration since it's also key for the mix of lifestyle changes that people need to learn, practice, and keep it as a habit. What kind of movement would you recommend to someone? I know you're not a movement expert. We're not talking about gym or no gym. We're really talking about movement in terms of life.
Well, luckily there will be other people much more inside this field than me. But what I can tell you is, imagine that everything you can do, like every movement, every training, let's say high intensity training, or even just a walk, we will do that in front of the sea, on the seaside, into the beach, or we can do that in the mountain, and that is what is going to happen into that week. So it will be very interesting. And but even just a session of meditation, of breath work in front of the sea, with the waves in front of you and the sounds of birds and sounds of the seaside, it would be fantastic.
That lowers stress just thinking about it, right? Just listening to you describing it.
Yes.
Talking about stress, like what does chronic stress do to longevity markers?
Right. It's interesting. In the last, let's say, 20 years, what the university said is that we age for one main reason, which is chronic low-grade inflammation, which means you think that you are absolutely in health, but inside your body there's a low-grade inflammation that is really destroying you literally one piece at a time. And so stress, smoke, what we eat, what we inhale living in big city, for example, gives you a certain amount of inflammation, which is not enough for your body for giving you a real disease in the moment, but they just sum up every single day, and in the end what it's going to do is making you aging. So one main big goal of longevity is making all these markers go lower, okay, and in order to achieve a much healthier life.
Yeah, that's super interesting, because it's not only about stress in general, right? Because stress is part of our life, correct? But it's really those, as you describe it, those constant low grade of inflammation, of stress that creates inflammation.
That's what we have not to achieve. Stay strong, inside and outside.
And outside, it's always a mirror outside. We said it before. Yeah. What changes do you see when you work with someone like 3 or 6 months? What do you think, at least what we think about the experience, the Sicily immersion, or your experience you already did with your previous patients? How does it look like 6 months later? What can people expect in terms of changes in their life?
Well, that's interesting, because when some patients come, after 6 months and for the follow-up, some of them are aware of the measurements, some of them are aware of changes. Some others just says, "Doctor, I just took the pills. I can't see nothing really." And I said, don't worry. Let's do again the questionnaire, for example. And they obviously do not remember the first questionnaire. So they answer, like the very first time. And what I show them is that they improved the quality of life, the quality of sleep, the energy is completely different. And lots of them are truly astonished by the effects, because when we compare the baseline and after 6 months, oh, that's what I said 6 months ago, and I feel really better now. That's it.
Yeah. Wonderful. And we have two amazing topics: longevity from one side, and also Sicily, because we are mixing it with this experience we're going to do together. And what do you, from your point of view, from your eyes, what is special about Sicily when it comes down to health and longevity?
Right. Okay. We're lucky, that's the truth, because we live in the very center of the Mediterranean area, and we've got the right amount of sun, for example. We've got the right simply the right olive oil, the right proteins. We're lucky. We're really lucky because all this mixed together, the quality of life, the amount of energy that we have from the outside, gives us a little island of wellness. In fact, in Sicily, with some other islands like Sardinia, for example, there are what we call the blue zones. We are some peculiar part of the world where lots of people can reach quite easily, I would say quite easily, 100 years of life. Okay, like Japan, for example, that's another blue zone, and this is the result of a mix of things: the quality of life, what you eat, the quality of the hair, the sunlight, the fact that you are in front of the sea, and that means more iodium, for example, that you can have into your alimentation. So lots of things that makes Sicily a fantastic option if you want to come, and if you want to join up both the medical part and the fun part.
This is the big plus, because
Yeah.
many places worldwide are renewed for high quality treatments and medical stuff, but they maybe lack the other part. So like leveling up both and having it in one place is going to be and we started seeing it, a great advantage, a unique advantage that we have. And also, I have one last question about the connection with, you mentioned some points about the air, the quality of air. What about nature? If you think about not only for the well-being of, feeling it, but also really scientifically proved if there's any that can help us see, and natural environment can help us lower the rhythm of stress or whatever. What is the point of view on a clinic perspective? Is there any relationship?
You know that, for example, Roman people was the very first population that understood the value of water. What we usually have in mind when we say spa is spa clinic or whatsoever. Spa is Latin, stands for salus per aquam, which means your health passed through the water. The fact that we have the sea, the fact that we have the water, the fact that we can have in the same place the right amount of micronutrients that we can have in the environment makes this place a special one. So when a person comes into Sicily, can really regenerate. It's not marketing hype or something like that, okay? And more than 100 years ago, there were lots of special hospitals for tuberculosis, which was a great, problem in all over the world, and especially in Europe. And all these hospitals were built in front of the seas. That's not just for fun, they just needed a place to build new hospital. It's because it's absolutely proven that if you go and you stay in some places in the world, you will feel better and you will have a better outcome in terms of fighting diseases, for example.
Amazing. So the water factor plus the Mediterranean diet that you explained before, and the mix with the programs that we're putting together is going to be an amazing offer for anyone who wants to improve their life, quality of life, and learn skills apart from what they're going to do for the week. Also learn skills they can bring back home and change the lifestyle for the better.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Great pleasure.
Rosa, it has been an amazing conversation. I'm sure other people will benefit from the information and the insights you are giving. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Looking forward to see you in Palermo soon.